Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
Well, it's 4 degrees here this morning at the farmhouse. I'll bet it was around 4 degrees in your neck of Missouri.
Yep.
Yep.
But how much snow did you get? We got not quite 2 inches, I think.
That's about what we have, and it's still here. And what happened to us is the roads got really wet, and then they froze, and then we had ice, and then we had snow on top of that. And the highway department, the county road department, doesn't think about clearing the snow until after it has completely melted. That's when they think about it. So,
Typical government.
Yeah. So we've been here, haven't left the farmhouse for days. Dr. Shealy, do you have anything that you'd like to start off with?
No, whatever. I'm open.
Okay. I'd like to share a story with you. And I don't think it has an answer, but maybe it's a story about learning. And this is about health and medicine. So there was a young person, we'll say a millennial, who needed surgery. And this young person didn't really have a support group that was commensurate with the surgery that he needed. So we offered to pick up this person, have this person stay at the farmhouse before surgery to get ready for surgery, to make sure he was as healthy as could possibly be, make sure that all the protocols were followed prior to the surgery. And we were not involved in the decision for surgery. He himself made that decision. And I believe it was probably the right decision based on what I know and knew. So time of surgery, we get the person to the hospital for the surgery at the appointed time. The surgery takes place. Everything goes well. And then we get the person, we go through all the protocols with the doctors about, what the next steps are and all that, and how to heal and what to look for, all those things that you would expect. So we took care of all that. Person came back here to the farmhouse, and we had a room and, clean and neat and all those things. They were very concerned about hydration and making sure that all the protocols were followed, which they were. Then a little bit after the surgery, the person wanted to go shopping, specifically to Walmart. Walmart is minimum, the closest one, minimum is probably a half-hour drive, but the conditions weren't all that good. There was snow on the road. Well, the person asked me, if he could go shopping. And I said, absolutely not. You just came back from surgery. Your immune system is low. You need to heal. And if you go to Walmart, that's like the worst place you could possibly go.
A cesspool.
Yep. So I said, absolutely not. And so he looked at me. I was like, really? And I said, well, actually, you can go. If you want to go, you're an adult, you can go. However, with your compromised immune system and the state you're in, you're likely to get sick. And you'll bring that back here. And then you can get us sick. And I'm not going to allow that. So if you want to go, you can go. But when you go, you're not coming back here. Dr. Shealy, can you comment medically on that? Can you comment from just the wisdom that you've experienced? What are your thoughts about what happened, what I did? Was I out of line? What is your reaction to what I said?
I would say optimal common sense.
Okay. Well, so that leads me to talk about, these young people who don't have enough common sense to get out of the rain. And I'm very serious. I see young people outside in shorts in the snow. Seriously. I mean, I see this, and I for the life of me, I can't understand it. You know they're going to get sick. They might even know they're going to get sick, but yet they still do it. Another example, so I was looking at this. Somehow I got lost in some YouTube videos, and one leads to another, leads to another. And there was these people eating at a restaurant, like a pizza joint, and big glass windows in front of the pizza joint. And there were people at different tables. And you could actually there was no dividing line between one half of the dining room area and the other, but you could see that, there's enough room for maybe 3 cars to park inside this dining area. And they're eating and everything's fine. All of a sudden, a car drives right through the front window, mows down 3 people, and then backs out. The police come and they arrest this gal, this young person, who was intoxicated, and they ask her to walk a straight line. The only thing she can do is walk in a circle. Okay? Absolutely smashed. And she just mowed down 3 people in a restaurant. And what was she wearing? She was wearing these big floppy boots. I mean, and these kind of things bother me as well. When I see a person driving in sandals, it bothers me because you don't have the foot control of the brake. If you have to slam on the brake, is that flip-flop going to stay on your foot as you transition from gas pedal to brake pedal, really quickly for a hard emergency brake? Is it going to work? Or is it going to work with the clutch if you happen to have a manual transmission vehicle? But yet they still wear these flip-flops. This gal was in these big floppy boots. And maybe she meant to hit the brake. Maybe she meant to press on the brake really hard, hit the gas. I don't know. But the part of the story that's important is, at least for me, I've been to pizza joints. I've been to pizza joints in the 1960s, the 1970s. And I can say with absolute certainty, when I go into a restaurant, which is very, very rare, but even back in the 1970s, I would never sit with my back to the door, with my back to the window. I would always sit in a place where if a car was going to jump the curb, I'd be able to see it. And I'd make sure that the seat that I took was in the safest place in that restaurant. And if the waitress said, "Would you like to sit by the window?" or "I've got a seat for you by the window," I'd say, "I appreciate that. Where else do you have? How about back there?" And that's what I would do. Any comments about that, Dr. Shealy?
Common sense. Be prepared.
Okay. It's really sad that we have to think like this because other people aren't thinking. And I've said to our boys over the years, I mean, for as long as we've been around with our children, that, when it's snowy and icy, we're not going anywhere. There's no need to go anywhere. We don't need to get in a car and risk our lives with these other people on the road who have no idea what they're doing, with vehicles that are not safe for the type of weather that we're having, like bald tires or summer type tires or highway tread type tires, when they need to have mud and snow tires to be out in the snow. And so if they go sliding, they're probably, going to crash into someone, something, or some other vehicle. And I don't want to be around when that happens. And I don't need to expose us to those unnecessary risks. So Dr. Shealy, I'm an entrepreneur, you're an entrepreneur, and I've got to say that entrepreneurs are risk averse. We do not like taking unnecessary risks. Is that right?
Of course. Yeah. That is common sense. Be prepared.
I have a call from one of our faculty, and he said, would you ask Dr. Shealy about purple sweet potatoes as compared to, the common variety of sweet potatoes? Is there a reason why we should be planting this summer and eating purple sweet potatoes if we can find them?
Well, the darker a vegetable, from red, yellow, orange, red, purple, when it gets towards purple, they have the highest concentration of antioxidants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Are there any other reasons, or is that the main reason?
No, I don't think there's any other major difference except for the antioxidants. But antioxidants are the reason for eating all vegetables.
Okay. Well, that's Dr. Shealy, I've never heard that said that way. So antioxidants are the reason for eating all vegetables. Okay. I know of a person, I've never met this woman. She's a mother, and she has MS. And evidently, she has had multiple problems with bowel obstructions. Is that something that happens as a course of living with MS? Is it?
Oh, yes.
Something that,
the entire nervous system, any part of it, from the top of your brain to the tips of your toes, can be affected in MS.
Okay, and we're talking about multiple sclerosis. So
right.
what? Okay, so I know a person with multiple sclerosis. Dr. Shealy, what should a person with multiple sclerosis do in order to make his or her life the best that it can possibly be?
Well, they need to take great care in everything they do, including their nutrition. But they have to be very careful because they are prone to falling, having trouble walking, even driving, thinking. It's a disease that affects every part of the nervous system.
Mm-hmm. Is there something that they should consume? Let's talk about that when we come back. Is there something that can make their bodies work better, their nervous system work better? Let's talk about that when we come back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. And when we're talking about multiple sclerosis, MS, what would a person do to improve his or her ability to get around, minimize falls, and extend life to the maximum? Is there a protocol that you found, Dr. Shealy, that you would recommend?
Well, obviously, at the top of the list is adequate B complex. The brain needs Bs more than anything else, although it needs lots of things. So 25 milligrams of a B complex is at the top of my list. And then, of course, vitamin C. And again, they need at least 2 grams a day of vitamin C. And astaxanthin, the strongest form of vitamin A. And finally, tocotrienol, the strongest form of vitamin E. So it's those essentials in good hefty doses as the foundation.
Okay. And, of course, eating raw food, natural food, staying away from food colors. Preservatives.
Getting what real food you can. Remember, right. 80% of the food in this country is junk.
I was talking with one of our instructors, and we're talking about meat. And there's this belief that we have that red dye is now added to beef to make it look fresh when it's not. Jeez.
That's worse than pink slime, isn't it? No, I don't know.
Well, I think it's a tight race for which is worst. I got an email from a gentleman by the name of Mark, and Mark said that he'd be interested in attending our expo if we had one, with my caveat that no cell phones would be allowed. And Mark says he can bring 2 to 3 others. That brings the total. If he brings 3, we're now up to 13 people who said they would be willing to attend. 13. I said I would be. Now, it's only been going on for about 3 weeks that we've been talking about it, so we might have to give it a couple more years. But
or a decade.
I don't know if it's the cell phone part that people don't like, or whether it's they just don't want to come to an expo. Either way, we haven't hit enough. I thought it'd be surprising if we hit 100 people who were interested, but we're a little over 10% of the way there. Dr. Shealy, before we eradicated most of the buffalo in this country, meaning the United States government, buffalo was a pretty good meat for us to eat, wasn't it, compared to just regular beef?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's, of course, grass-fed. And in general, a natural fed is infinitely better than confined fed.
Yep. And our beef is here at the farm is grass-fed. Let's see. We've got a caller B in Illinois. You've got a question for Dr. Norman Shealy. Please.
Hi, Vince. This is Dee. My husband is David. He calls you guys a lot.
Uh-huh. Oh, so your name is D as in David,
D
or B
as in the 4th letter in the alphabet.
Okay, great. Okay, very good.
I have celiac disease, constant insomnia, and I have an arrhythmic flutter. And my little sister has been telling me that I should check into magnesium. So I was wanting to know Dr. Shealy's thoughts about magnesium for those things, and which type should I use?
Well, our findings are that magnesium is infinitely better absorbed through the skin than it is through the mouth. So I personally prefer the lotion, but some people prefer the spray. To me, the spray is a little more sloppy because it's like water, and the lotion doesn't drip all over the place. But they both have the magnesium available to be absorbed through the skin.
Is there a certain type of magnesium? Because I'm reading and I'm seeing different types, not just the form.
Yeah, magnesium chloride is considerably better than the other forms.
D, hold that thought. Let's go in a little deeper to your question and make sure you get the complete answers you need. We'll be right back. We're talking about magnesium spray, magnesium lotion. D in Illinois is with us. Dr. Norman Shealy has been explaining it. And so let's help D with how do we apply magnesium lotion, Dr. Shealy? It's available on your website at normshealy.com, normshealy.com.
Right.
How do we apply it?
Well, anywhere on the skin except the face. And the reason I don't put it in the face, if it gets in the eyes, it will sting. Obviously, you don't put it on hairy skin. But other than that, it can go anywhere. Personally, I use it almost exclusively just on my buttocks. Teaspoon in each hand, rubbed on the buttocks, pull up my shorts, and it's done. Don't have to wait for it to dry.
Dee, does that help
every
you?
night?
Twice a day, ideally. Morning and night.
Oh, that would be very helpful. With my celiac disease, and now that I don't have a gallbladder, should I be using vitamin K?
In general, I like vitamin K, and of course with your celiac disease, I like more than 100 micrograms. It is sort of the minimum for the average person. You can buy it in up to 15 milligram tablets or capsules, and I think someone in your problem would do well with 15 milligrams a day. But also you need vitamin D, as in David.
Yeah. Yes, I am taking vitamin D3, and I'm taking 2,000, I think it's 2,000 or 200 milligrams a day, whatever David bought me.
Well, I hope it's at least 2,000 because, in general, anybody who weighs 100 pounds or more can do well with up to 5,000 a day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and I wanted to know your thoughts on wild lettuce.
Well, I honestly can't tell you that I know what a wild lettuce is. But if it's, raised in a pretty pristine environment, I'm sure it would be good because, natural products are better.
Mm-hmm. And David mentioned that you have a device that you use to help with pain management, and I was kind of interested in hearing some stuff about that.
Well, I've been working with electrical control of pain since the mid-'50s, and I've introduced a number of techniques, but my favorite, all-time favorite, is our chakra sweep or, just gamma-inducing PEMF, pulsed electromagnetic frequency device. It is totally safe. The only contraindication would be pregnancy or a pacemaker. It won't hurt you, but it might interfere with a pacemaker.
No, I don't have a pacemaker yet. They say one is in my future, but I am trying to make every effort to not go there. I'm even taking CoQ10 to help with that as well.
Good. Yeah, well, the PEMF device is so good, you can use it 24 hours a day, essentially. Now, at the present time, it is plugged into the wall, so you have to be lying down or sitting in order to use it, but you can sleep with it all night. You can put it on any part of your body. No matter where you put it, the whole body's getting some of it, although it's more concentrated right under the ring.
And would this help with back problems like sciatica?
Yes, it can. That is for sure. That's why we started using this, was for local pain.
Mm-hmm.
But
because that is one of the things that I suffer from in a big way is sciatica.
Now, the most important thing that is missed by conventional medicine of all kinds, including chiropractic even, is something called a sacral shear. That is a rotation of the sacrum. And the only people that I know who know even how to diagnose it are osteopathic physicians, DOs, who still do osteopathic medicine. Now, 90% of them don't do osteopathic medicine. I learned it in 1982 because I had a sacral shear, got it corrected, and now I diagnose it. I would say somewhere between 15 and 20% of all the people who walk into my office, no matter what's going on, have a sacral shear. And that's correctable in 30 seconds.
Oh, wow. And probably a lot of money, too.
Well, I don't know. I like to examine the patient, take care of them if they need something else, but, my office fee for a half-hour visit and everything I do is $100, so.
Oh, that's not bad. Well, it's not, because I'm in a situation right now with my doctor, and it's, she's not real open to people, I guess, being very proactive in their health. And because of my personal health and because of David's health that we have both had to deal with, we both have to be proactive for each other. And that doesn't really go over well with your average doctor.
You're absolutely right on. The average doctor thinks he or she is God, and you shouldn't even speak unless spoken to. But
yes, and all the conventional synthetic medicines are just way too compromising with your health now. And when I do my research and I tell them no, they just look at me like, well, then what are you in here for? Yeah.
So that's all we got to offer is junk medicine. No, I'm with you all the way. For a chronic problem, I do not know a drug that I would allow in my body.
Well, I have narrowed them down significantly with David's help, and I'm looking forward to getting rid of a few more as I go. I'm just doing it slowly, and the more I learn, the more I get away from, and that's not making them happy either, but I have to do what is best for me, even though they don't quite think so all the time.
Well, I'm with you all the way, Dee.
And Vince, I would like to add that your comment earlier about the friend that you helped after surgery, there is no way in God's green earth after any one of my surgeries I felt going to Walmart or anywhere else. Just take me home, put me to bed, leave me alone.
Well, I'm with you. But what I'm finding, like every day, it seems that young people just don't understand so many things, which has brought me to the point when I've mentioned Atlas Shrugged and one of the fictional characters, John Galt. And John Galt just decided he was going to withdraw his efforts and energy, his brilliance, in his case, from the system. He just wasn't going to participate anymore. And I have come to, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about today with Dr. Shealy, and I'd love to mention this with you being with us. I've been helping people for a long time, and I've said things to them like, hey, why don't you consider doing such and such? It'll make things better. Now, let me give you an example. So someone pulls up into our driveway, and we have a gravel driveway, but then there's a concrete pad. And let's say they stop on the concrete pad, and I notice that there's this pink fluid dripping out under their vehicle. And I see it because I look at things like that. And then I say, you know, it looks like you have a transmission leak. Would you like me to take a look at it? No, it's okay. It'll be fine. Okay. Well, you ought to keep an eye on that, because if you run low on transmission fluid, you're going to do some serious damage to your engine. Okay. Then the next time I see him, I see the transmission leak, and I say, so did you find anything about that transmission? No, I haven't had a chance to look yet. Okay. I understand. Well, I'm now at the point, Dr. Shealy and Dee, where I only say it one time. One time. I don't want to say it anymore because it tears me up, and I'm thinking, gosh, it's so easy to check this thing. You raise the hood. That's not too hard. Typically there is a dipstick, kind of like an engine oil dipstick, and you put the car either in neutral with the emergency brake on, or you put it in park, depending on what your owner's manual says. And when the vehicle's warmed up, you pull out this dipstick and you wipe it off with a clean rag, and then you put it back in and pull it back out and read the level of the oil. It's like 30 seconds. But yet, that's an example, but people won't do it. So I have pulled away from saying it more than once. I'll tell them once, and if they don't get it, I'm not going to say it again. This is something new, and this is something that manifested with this young person that I was talking about that came back from the hospital, and that's why I said, okay, you're an adult, you can do whatever you want, but you can't come back here, because I'm not going to put myself at risk because of their ignorance. But it's not just that. It's not just that one particular example. It seems to be many examples. One more would be, I saw a young person a while ago with a cell phone, and I said, do you know that cell phones transmit and receive in the microwave frequency bandwidth? That's exactly the same as a microwave oven. Yep, I know that. Okay. Did you know that you can cook a hot dog in a microwave oven or boil some water in a microwave oven? Yep, I know that. Well, do you know that if you put it on high power, it cooks faster? If you put it on low power, it still cooks it, but it takes longer? Yeah. Okay, well, your cell phone is about a watt or so, and the microwave oven might be between 800 and 1,000 watts. So if you have that cell phone in your back pocket, you're cooking yourself. Yeah, I know. Okay. Next time I saw that person, it was in the front pocket right by the person's heart. And I said, let me show you this meter. Have I ever shown you this meter? Yeah, you did. No, you didn't. Okay. So I said, well, let's take a look. And this meter was lit up like a Christmas tree with maximum strength, and the cell phone was in this young person's pocket, right next to the heart. I'm not going to tell the person again. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. Class, if you'd like to contact his clinic, I'll give you the number, 417-351-5221, 417-351-5221, to make an appointment if you'd like to do that. And that's in Springfield, Missouri. Dee is with us in Illinois. Dr. Shealy, I mentioned the story about, the transmission drip, the fluid check. And I have gotten to the point where I'm only going to tell a person one time. I'm not going to repeat it, even though I know that they are going to damage their equipment. They're going to have problems. I can see things and I can recommend them. But if they're not willing to act, I'm not willing to remind them. I have gone Galt. I have gone John Galt. I am John Galt, and I believe many of our instructors and students are going John Galt or are John Galt right now, meaning we've tried, and we're just not going to participate in feeding the beast anymore. Dr. Shealy, do you have any comments on that? And I'd like to hear Dee's.
All the way, Big Blue.
Okay, Dee?
David and I have also got to that point about society and people and how they are. I just have to say that my reaction to these people's ignoring the transmission fluid is different from yours. My first reaction would probably be to tell them to get their car out of my driveway and clean that up, because my dogs could step in that or lick that, and then they would be paying for my vet bill if, in fact, my vet could save them.
Wow.
Beyond the two of us, our dogs are right up there, and people are next, somewhere after the three of them.
You've made such a great point, probably without even saying it. I think what you're saying is that your dogs are smarter, better behaved, more trustworthy, more truthful, more proactive than some people you know. I think that's what you're saying.
99.9% of the people I know. Or just come across on a daily basis. Let me just say that, because I can't say that about my close friends, because my close friends are very valuable, and I've had them for most of my life. So, yes, they rank just right up there with my best friends.
Dee, do you count people whom you've not met yet close friends of yours? And the reason I'm saying that is I feel I have some very close friends. I just haven't met them yet. Now, I know who they are. We talk on the phone. They call me on the radio. Okay, they participate in class. They're wonderful. They're proactive. They're bright. They're energetic. They're giving. They're kind. They're honest. They're loyal. They have all those wonderful traits. I just haven't met them yet, but I consider them very close friends. Do you
you mean meeting them in person?
Yes.
Yes, I have email friends like that. I have not met them in person, but we've been friends for, couple of them more than 5 to 10 years, and we are very close friends. And yes, they are right up there with people I have concerns about, and I ask how they're doing. And it's not just a fill the air question, it's a I'm sincerely concerned question.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm also talking about, let's say you wanted to, you were going to be in their neck of the woods. Okay, let's say you're traveling from a distance, and you're going to be in their neck of the woods, and you said, "Hey, I'm going to be in your neck of the woods. Would you like to meet and just chat for a little bit?" What is the likelihood that they would show up? I would say it would be great as compared to other people you know who maybe you see way more often than a person you've never met, but that person that you see more often might not show up. Something might happen. They might have had their new program come on TV and they forgot. That kind of thing. Hour number 2 of U.S. State Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dee is still with us. Dee, did you have any other questions for Dr. Shealy?
Not today. I just want to thank you for letting me get some information, and David will be talking to you soon, Vince.
Wonderful. David had a very interesting experience in his childhood with a mass murderer, so he's going to come on the air and tell us his experience. I'm looking forward to that. John Wayne Gacy is the mass murderer that we're talking about.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
It has been very difficult for David, and it's not been easy to live with some of the stuff that has been done to him. But I have to tell you that even knowing what I know now, it wouldn't have changed a thing after all these years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not a thing. So, it's hard for him, and now that he's able to talk about it, it's very helpful, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you allowing him to come on your show and talk about it, because it is helping him, and that is all that matters to me, is helping him.
Dee, thank you so much for calling, and call anytime you'd like, okay? Thank you again, Dee.
Blessings.
Okay. Dr. Shealy, question I have deals with modern medicine, and is it a process that modern medicine goes through that takes people that with diseases, let's say a specific disease, withdraws their blood from the person with that disease, then injects it into an animal, and then the animal builds antibodies, and then we extract the antibodies from the animal and then inject it back into the person. Does that happen with medicine?
Well, I imagine it happens in a research situation, but it certainly does not happen, I believe, in common practice.
Okay. And what I was wondering is if for example, let's say a person was really seriously ill with a debilitating disease, and then the person's blood was withdrawn, let's say a syringe full, whatever that may be, some amount of blood, and then that blood is injected into a small animal about the weight of a human, let's say a goat, for example, and then time goes by, let's say a month or so, then the milk from that goat is consumed by the person with that malady. Is it possible that that goat's milk would have antibodies in it that would help the person?
Well, it is possible. That's yes, definitely. But that's, of course, a very complex and needs tight controls over how it's done.
Okay. I've been thinking about carelessness, Dr. Shealy, and during the first hour, I mentioned a young person with a cell phone and I saw the person twice, and the person still didn't get, the dangers of the cell phone, even when I showed that person on a meter that this thing is transmitting. And even though the meter said things like Wi-Fi, microwave, oven, as detectable items on this particular meter, that person still did not seem to grasp the gravity of the situation and the dangers that these cell phones create. And so now my question relates, it's kind of a strange question. My question relates to carelessness. So I find that so many people are careless. Is it possible that these cell phones that emit these frequencies are editing our genes without our knowledge, and they are now making us careless? Is it possibly that we're being transformed right, like real time, live?
Well, yes, and of course, one of the places where they're transforming the genes greatest is in the testicles, because people often wear them in their side pocket, and so they get fried more easily than the rest of the body. And the sterility rate in this country has gone in males from 150 million to 40 million sperm. And when it gets to 20 million, we are totally infertile.
I was watching Jay Leno, and I don't normally do this, but I got kind of lost. And he did a series called, Jay Leno took over for Johnny Carson in late night television, which I've seen a couple times, but I don't waste a lot of time on any of these things. But I certainly know that Jay Leno is a car collector, and I happened to see him do something on the internet called Jay Walking. He would walk around and ask people questions just to see what their knowledge base is like. And he was particularly interested in talking to some young people because California took first place in the least educated fourth graders in the nation. So no state had lower test scores than California of this particular year. So he took out a science book, a fourth grade science book from the state training camp that the public schools in California used, and he asked adults questions based on this fourth grade lesson book. And they failed miserably. And he also asked them other questions, general knowledge questions. So, for example, he had a small flag on a stick in his hand, and it was probably the size of an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, copier paper, and it had stars and stripes on it. And he held it in his hand, and he said, "How many stars are on the United States flag?" Now, he had it in his hand. He didn't let them count the stars. Some people said 32. Some people said greater than 50. The ones who knew, now these were people of all colors, okay? Everybody was represented in this particular sample, or almost everybody. There were a few people who got the answers correctly. But they weren't from this country. They were visiting this country. But the Americans couldn't tell them how many stars. Now I'm talking about the equivalent of today's millennials. It was absolutely shocking how our educational system has failed us. And that leads to the thing that I'd like to talk about, which is sandwiches. Now, what does sandwiches, the typical sandwich, have to do with our inability to know things? What do sandwiches have to do with our lack of knowledge, general knowledge, our lack of family, our carelessness, our inattentiveness? I believe that there is a relationship between sandwiches and the things I just mentioned. For example, so the young person's in the house and mom says, okay, we're going to have dinner at 5:30. And the young person says, no, Mom, I can't do it. I got to go. I'll just grab a sandwich. Okay, so person's getting ready to go to work, and it's breakfast time, and he says to his mom, hey, Mom, I'll just grab a sandwich. I don't have time for breakfast. The dinner time, person says, look, Mom, it's okay. I can't have dinner, but I'm going to go grab a sandwich at McDonald's. Now, a sandwich can be round or it can be square. It can be a sub sandwich. It can be long, oblong. It can be 2 pieces of bread with something in between it. It can be 2 bun halves with something in between, like we call those hamburgers. It could be a long hamburger roll, which you call a hot dog roll with a hot dog in it. So what I'm saying is bread surrounding something else, whether it be meat or lettuce or whatever. I believe that that the sandwich is part of the destruction of the family, Dr. Shealy, before the cell phones.
As always, you are correct. The Earl Sandwich, for whom apparently the word is created, would not believe today what has happened to bread in the last couple of centuries. Personally, I haven't eaten bread and I'm approaching 14 years, and I have no plans on eating it ever again.
And that is because of the Monsanto effect, right? The glyphosate and the genetically modified.
Roundup poison.
Okay. So, Dr. Shealy, you mentioned over years ago, we used to call them beer bellies. You know, someone who drank extraordinary amounts of beer would get this big basketball that they carry around just above their belt line, typically men, and they were called beer bellies. But you call that a wheat belly.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
so
because wheat, and by the way, it's been a beer belly. Remember, beer is made out of wheat often.
Right.
And so wheat is one of the worst products in the world. It is the most seriously poisoned food available, and especially when you get it at McDonald's or any of its clones.
But it didn't used to be, did it, Dr. Shealy? I'm talking like in the 1950s. Was wheat contaminated, or was it wheat okay?
There was no such thing in the back in those days. It began actually in the late 70s, and today Monsanto has poisoned the world.
I remember going to elementary school, and my fellow students, with the exception of maybe one person in an entire class, everybody was fit and trim. One person would be considered husky. That was the term back then. But husky didn't necessarily mean fat. We'll be right back. Shealy's with us, class. NormShealy.com, NormShealy.com. Dr. Shealy, I was reading an article on the internet, and it was quite amusing to me, based on the things that we've been talking about for years. And that is that just spending 20 minutes in the park, it's like a city dweller, just spending 20 minutes in the park can boost a person's happiness. And so I was thinking about, why is that? Now, they're saying that you don't even have to exercise, just go to the park. Is it possible that the chief reason, among all the other reasons, would be the reduction in electromagnetic radiation as compared to living in an apartment in the city where you're surrounded top, bottom, left, and right by Wi-Fi, wireless communications, and cell phones, whereas when you're in the park, there is a greater distance between you and people with cell phones, because in the city, I would think every person, or darn close to every person, has a cell phone. So if you're in the office setting, you're surrounded by people who have cell phones, plus Wi-Fi, plus the computer technology, and all of this electromagnetic radiation that in the soup that you're in. Could that be?
Yes, absolutely. Springfield, Missouri 159,000 roughly people. In 2002, I found that the background electromagnetic junk, if you will, in North Springfield was 2 milligauss. You know, in other words, there was no place in the city where you could escape background electromagnetic energy. In Springfield, of all places.
And for those who haven't been to Springfield, Missouri is spread out. So it's not tall per se, it's wide. So what I'm saying is it's not like New York City where you've got skyscrapers everywhere. Now, there are a couple tall buildings, but there aren't many of them. You know, a handful,
right.
maybe 10 tall buildings. But it's spread out wide where there's plenty of space. So that's quite alarming, Dr. Shealy, and it's getting tough to get away from it. Now, where you live on your farm, you are away from a lot of it.
Yeah,
and I don't think we can.
We get nothing measurable in the background at the farm.
Mm-hmm.
But in Springfield, up on Evergreen, which, you know, isn't the most congested part of the city, there was, in those days, a 2 milligauss background everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, according to this article on Daily Mail, they say that researchers at the University of Alabama at Birmingham conducted a study, and they found that spending 20 minutes in an urban park boosts emotional wellness. And the study was based on results from 98 adults who visited 3 different parks. And they say that the visitors of the parks don't even have to exercise to get the benefits of feeling better. And naturally. So now, when we look at what's happening with 5G and more smart meters, it's going to get worse, not better. It's going to get worse, in my opinion. Do you agree, Dr. Shealy, as technology? Okay.
Absolutely.
And then we have these driverless cars. So these things require radar, more frequencies, front, back, side, and then they want the cars have to communicate with the towers, the cell towers, and GPS. So the cars have antennas looking up, left, right, forward, backward, every direction. And so if one of them's behind you, you're being blasted. If one of them's in front of you, you're being blasted. If one of them is alongside of you, you're being blasted. And people aren't even thinking.
I consider
about
driverless cars, for the individual person, even greater insanity than nuclear energy. This is beyond any common. I mean, talk about a total lack of common sense. Wow. Right.
And that's why I've been saying for the last several weeks that I think that we're going to go down as a result of our combined carelessness and our combined stupidity. Put those two, and our greed. Our greed and our stupidity, the major 2 components of what's going to take us down. Driverless cars, wireless communications, nuclear energy, satellites broadcasting microwaves down over our heads. It's inescapable. We'll be right back. Plus, you may want to teach your children about taxes. And you can start with eating 10% of their ice cream, which you might consider a sales tax. Then eat 30% more of it, which would be the federal tax. Then eat another 20%, which would be the state income tax. Then eat another 10% of it, which would be the personal property tax. And then you can give them the remainder, which would be 30% for them to eat. Dr. Shealy, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry are expecting a child. And according to an article that I was reading, that the couple told Vanity Fair that Meghan Markle, who is 37, is telling the guests at her recent baby shower that she would raise the baby in a fluid way. So that's her exact word, fluid. So she said they plan to raise the child with a fluid approach to gender, and they won't be imposing stereotypes.
It's sanity again.
Can you imagine? Dr. Shealy, can you imagine?
I prefer not even to know the crap.
What the heck? So this child will be in class, and the teacher will be asked, okay, so how many of her class are boys and how many are girls? And I can just see, 10 years, the teacher saying, well, it depends. It depends. It depends on what day it is. It doesn't depend on so much on how many people are present or absent. It depends on what gender they choose today. So it could be, mostly boys. It could be mostly girls. It could change. And it might even change by the end of the class. This is crazy.
Well, ignorance is ignoring facts. This is beyond ignorance. It is insanity. Pure, crazy, psychological, psychotic insanity.
A boy is a boy, regardless of what surgery he has done. A girl is a girl, regardless of what surgery or hormone therapy she takes. Is that correct, Dr. Shealy?
Yes. The DNA determines whether you have Y or X chromosomes. It's that simple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Craig in Long Island, welcome. You're on with Dr. Norman Shealy.
Vince, before I ask the question, I just got to say thank you. I've been listening for a couple of years. Always informative, always intelligent. You're a breath of fresh air.
Well, not me. I just sit here and learn as the class does. The instructors at USA Prepares, I believe, are the best and brightest of any broadcast there is. And it's my privilege and my honor to be among them. I am the most fortunate person on the planet because I get to do this. I really do.
I'm really glad you do the show. I remember maybe a year or two ago you were seriously thinking about giving it up, and I'm glad you stuck with it.
Well, Craig, just to be perfectly frank, I think about it all the time, giving it up. And I'll tell you why. I just can't get over how many stupid people there are. And I've said this over and over. I am flabbergasted, Craig, that, people with trailers, pulling out in front of cars, in front of traffic, knowing that it's going to be difficult for the oncoming traffic or the traffic that they're pulling out of, to not hit them. It's amazing. It's amazing to me. The flip-flops that people wear in the cold and inclement weather. Dr. Shealy gives extraordinary medical advice, and some people don't listen. I've had people who I know personally who are dying, literally, in the throes of death, and I would say to their spouse or them, I'll tell you what, here's the number, make this call Monday morning between 9 and 11. You'll have as much time as you need. Just write down some questions, and I will help. I'll help you by making that time available, and you'll be able to ask for free, no charge. All you have to do is call, and Dr. Shealy will help you. I know he can help you. I know it, and they don't call. How many am I talking about? All of them. How long am I talking about? About 8 years. All of the people who I've recommended, personally, people that I know who are really sick, I've said, please, please, please call Dr. Shealy. Not one of them has called. I don't get it. So I get really frustrated, and I wonder, why am I doing this? Why is Dr. Shealy doing this? Why is Rick Miller doing this? And then if you look at some of the comments of some of the people who hear our broadcast on the radio, they beat us up. Really? If if they don't like us, please don't waste your time. Don't waste your time learning. Go watch TV. Go to a ball game. Okay? Go to McDonald's and, hurry up the inevitable.
And slop up.
While you're there.
So I am frustrated. But, Craig, so you've got a question for Dr. Shealy.
Yes, my 10-year-old son came down with strep throat last week. It's like a philosophical question. Do we all have strep throat in us? What would happen if we didn't get on antibiotics? And how long is he contagious for after the antibiotic?
Okay, now that's a big question because when I was in medical school, before antibiotics were so prevalent, streptococcal infection, certain forms, streptococcus is just not one bug, if you will. It has a whole family. But the streptococcus virus can damage your heart permanently. It can damage your joints permanently. It can damage your brain permanently. I saw about 8 or 9 months ago a 7-year-old young lady with something called PANDA, P-A-N-D-A syndrome, which is brain damage after streptococcal infection. So to treat a streptococcal infection, it is one of the places where I would personally be in favor of antibiotics.
I mean, so if a homeless person got strep throat, they could absolutely get all these maladies from not getting on the antibiotic.
Right. Well, and let's face it, for every person whose life you save or body part you save with antibiotics, there's an occasional, but it's much, much smaller, allergic reaction that can cause problems. But compared to severe chronic heart disease and some of the other dangers of streptococcal, in my opinion, there is a place for antibiotics.
And in your estimation, how long will he be contagious for?
7 to 10 days.
Okay. So me and my wife both have to watch out for the symptoms of
Yes.
this strep. While I have you, can I ask you a question about type 2 diabetes?
I'm sorry?
Can I ask you a question about type 2 diabetes?
Well, of course.
What is the best? Should they exercise after meals for a little bit, or try to do one long session of cardio and strength training?
You know, interestingly, to some extent, it doesn't matter. 3 minutes 10 times a day is better than no exercise at all. And for someone who hasn't built up to that, starting with 3 minutes and adding a minute every day or two to build up to 30 minutes is the ideal. And I wouldn't do it after eating. I would always do it, a minimum of an hour away from a meal.
Excellent advice, Dr. Shealy. You guys have a great day, and hope to talk to you soon.
Hey, thanks for calling.
Craig, one quick thought before you go. Does Dr. Shealy, strep throat, does Craig need to protect his family so the rest of the family does not get strep throat?
Well, there's no way you can totally protect yourself when you live in a closed environment. Now, Obviously, if you're taking adequate vitamin C, that's the top of my list. That's a time when everybody in the family, I would say, over 5 years of age, should be 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C and some B complex.
Okay. And, of course, hygiene, washing hands.
Oh, yeah.
And avoiding coughing on people. Craig, anything else you need to know?
That's it for today. Thank you, guys.
Hey, have a good one.
Thank you, Craig. Dr. Shealy, you sent me an email that it was about, this is no joke, the Civil War. Would you like to discuss that at this point?
Well, the article is about the what I would call hostility of the leftistas, and it was basically saying that the leftistas, the insane Democrats, have declared a non-physical, non-gun war on anything that disagrees with them. And of course, that's true. It has gotten infinitely worse over the last 20 years, especially.
Dr. Shealy, when I was reading this article, and it talks about the Civil War and what happens. Let me just read a little bit, if I may. It was written by Dr. Jack Minzy, and he passed away in April of 2018. Professionally, Jack was the head. May I read this, or is this proprietary, Dr. Shealy?
No, as far as I know, it's in the public domain.
Okay. Professionally, Jack was the head of the Department of Education at Eastern Michigan University, as well as a prolific author of numerous books, most of which were on the topic of education and the government role therein. The latest work was Civil War, and how do civil wars happen? Two or more sides disagree on who runs the country, and they can't settle on the question through elections because they don't even agree that elections are how you decide who's in charge. That's the basic issue here. Who decides who runs the country? And when you hate each other, but accept election results, you have a country. When you stop accepting election results, you have a countdown to a civil war. I think that's where we are. I think the Civil War has started. I think we're in the early stages of the Civil War, and I've got some comments, and I'd love to hear your reactions when we come back. And I'll say why I think the Civil War has started. Dr. Shealy, I believe that the Civil War in the United States has already begun. And let me give you some examples. So we've all seen these stories about a person who calls the police because one family member, let's say a son, is distraught, and the mother calls the police or the sister calls the police and says, my brother or my son is distraught. I'm really concerned. I think he might be suicidal. So the cops come, and then the cops end up shooting the person that they wanted to protect from suicide. And then we find that we buy products, and we think that they are from a reputable store, and we think that they're a durable product, and we buy them, and then the products fail, and then we bring them back to the store, and the store says, well, there's no warranty on that, or the warranty's up, or they just flat out refuse to honor the warranty for the item that we bought. There's no product safety agency that is working for the people. You can't call your congressperson. You can't reach them. There's no way you can actually speak to them on the phone. You can't call your senator. You can't call your state representative. And the police are actually stealing personal property and keeping it and selling it themselves, or the sheriff's office is collecting it and then selling people's property. Let me give you an example of what I've been talking about. So there's a story that's made the mainstream media about new refrigerators. So what happens is you might have a newer refrigerator, not brand new, but you get a new one because you like the stainless steel look, and you take the one that you just bought a few years ago, and what do? You put it in the garage. But you find out that your new refrigerator that you just put in the garage of just a few years old doesn't work in the garage. Or you buy one that's new, and you decide that you want to have a refrigerator and you want it to be in the garage. Well, new refrigerators might not work in the garage because the temperature might be too cool. Can you imagine that? So what happens is you call the company like Sears and you say, hey, I got this Kenmore refrigerator and it won't work in my garage. And they go, we'll send a guy out. And the guy comes out and says, well, what's the matter with you? You know that the refrigerators don't work in the garage. Since when? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. So Sears won't repair a refrigerator that won't work in the garage because the new refrigerators are not inclined to work at cooler temperatures. They want to be warmer than that. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I'd like to give you my opinion of the two so-called parties in this country.
Sure.
On a scale of 0 to 10 in sanity and quality, I give the Democrats a 0, and I give the Republicans a 3.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 1.
Well, I'm being generous today.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you, Dr. Shealy. I agree. And there's nobody to call. If you had a problem and it required you contacting the office of your state representative, do you think there would be anything that state representative would do?
No.
Do you think you'd be able to reach that state representative?
No.
Okay. Well, I know for a fact I can't reach my turd. She sends me an email every month talking about how many great things that she and her conspirators are up to. But I've tried to get in touch with her. I can't. I can't get her to even respond. However, she does send birthday cards. That's the last thing I want from these turds, is a birthday card. They're spending my money for something that I don't want.
Well, that's most of what they do, period, whether it's a birthday card or their crappy legislation.
Let me tell you a real quick short story about how bad things are. I bought three hydrants, frost-free hydrants from MFA, Missouri Farmers Cooperative. And one of them has failed very quickly after a couple of years. These are things that, after a few years, these are things that you expect to be lifetime durability. I called corporate headquarters because no one knows where to get the parts. As a result, I got a call from the corporate attorney for MFA, and he told me that if I call there again, he will file a police report for harassment.
Hey, part of the evil empire.
This is how bad things have gotten. You can't even call a company to find out where to get parts for things they sell without them threatening to call the police and file a police report for harassment for trying to find out where to get the parts. Unbelievable. Dr. Shealy, thank you so much for being with us today and dispensing such great medical advice.